My name is Ed O'Connell. I'm a Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate cosplayer, uh, father of 2 children, and I'm an outdoor enthusiast.
Hi, I'm James Hannon, author of Anatomy of a Cosplayer, Tales from Behind the Mask. I'm here with my friend Ed O'Connell, aka Reaper.
How you doing?
Ed's a good friend, and he's one of the original founders of the Rebel Legion costume group. He's also in a ton of other groups that we'll be talking about shortly, and we got a lot to talk about, so you ready to go?
I'm ready when you're ready.
All right, let's go.
Away we go. I started cosplaying probably by mistake. I was in a Star Wars online RPG when a good friend of mine, Tony Truxell, who's also in the RPG, found out that 501st was not going to accept Rebel costumes into the group. He put the group of us together to form a new Rebel-oriented group. Since I'm a big geek and I knew all the details of the books and the movies and the costumes and what character did what, I was an information guy. I originally had no intention of joining the group itself, as I wasn't a costumer, but just looking at the fun that everyone had putting the costumes together and everything else, and the fact that I did like Star Wars pilots and Star Wars soldiers, I decided to give it a try. And after my first troop, I was hooked. There's something about the look in a child's face when he sees Darth Vader for the first time and is absolutely terrified. Not being Darth Vader, I was fine. But, bending down, looking him in his face and saying, "Would you like to meet my friend Darth Vader?" Holding his hand when he walks up there and shakes his hand and smiles, melts your heart. And it doesn't matter what anyone says at that point. You're a sucker, and you'll do it over and over and over again just to have that feeling of, I made that kid happy. That's how I got in. I probably have 10 costumes. Some of my favorites are some of them retired ones. My X-Wing fighter pilot, which was, to the geek like me, was my A New Hope Y-Wing fighter pilot. The orange fighter pilot suit from the first movie. Absolute favorite. I've done more stuff in that. I've gone to more places and met more people in that. My current favorite is the First Contact Star Trek uniform with the gray shoulders and colored turtleneck. I have a G.I. Joe costume, 2 Stargate costumes. I do have a wizard from Lord of the Rings costume in the closet that I never finished. I have 2 classic Battlestar Galactica costumes. One, a Colonial Warrior with a brown jacket, tan uniform, and then I have a Colonial Security, which was a black jumpsuit. I have a black jumpsuit Imperial costume for the 501st, which, depending on my headgear, could be a naval officer, a crewman, or an Imperial gunner, which is what it started out as. Well, for me, back in the day was the 90s. Going to a convention in the 90s, which was next generation time and whatnot. But I have an uncle who was a Star Trek fan in the 70s. Never cool enough to go out with him, but I saw him and his friends meet up before they went out. And back then it was, you get the shirt the right color, maybe a black t-shirt so you see the collar, and then you cut out and fabric glue the little delta on the side. Wear black pants and boots, and you go out and you're all good to go, because that's what Star Trek costuming was before you had people worrying about, is it the right fabric, is it the right stitches, is it the right zipper placement. It was also a bit more underground. These are the days where a lot of people were really made fun of if you were a sci-fi geek. Trust me, you were made fun of, no matter how big you were. There were no internet postings, there were no telephone calls about it. You picked up a flyer from the convention center saying what was coming up next week, and then you spread it to your friends. You wrote letters, actual letters, and you put a stamp on it and sent it to somebody if you couldn't phone them or if they were going to come from a long distance. And that changed in the 90s. It became a little bit more mainstream. Yes, you were still made fun of. I graduated high school in 1990, and I'm still one of the biggest geeks, I think, in my high school class. The origins of Rebel Legion started as a 501st poll of its membership. They chose not to allow Rebel costumes in. There was quite a few people who had Rebel costumes who wanted to be represented, to want to organize, and to, create a legion, so to say. So Tony Truxell and 6 or 7 of us got together, and we lifted the 501st charter but we tried to mold it into something a little bit broader. Our original focus was to make a general costuming group, one that covered both anything Lucasfilm might ask us to do, like the 501st does, the charity work that the 501st did, but also just fun convention stuff. Stuff that didn't require screen-accurate costumes. The focus of the group has tightened up a little and has become more 501st rigid. But those early years, it was quite a fight for some people's mentality who were used to the 501st to have something a little bit broader. We had different categories, like the formal category, which was the, everything spot on to what you see in the movies category, and then non-informal, which was, like I described, my gray and green flight suit. There's no way anyone ever confused that costume as a screen-used one or a screen-seen one. But you know what? I walked into a convention, everyone knew I was an X-Wing fighter pilot. Everyone knew what the equipment on me was. Seeing how the props and everything was lift right from one costume to the other. The colors didn't matter. So you had fun, you had a little personalization, but you were still able to be recognized. And that's what we wanted. The biggest difference between costuming back in the early 2000s, late 90s to now is the society we live in. There was a lot less fear. You don't walk in carrying your phaser rifle or Battlestar Galactica laser or anything else. And you have to be more concerned about what the kids are going to see. They see enough on the news and hear enough in the world that you just want to make it an escape for them and keep it fun. And if that means leaving this stuff on a bookshelf, you just leave this stuff on a bookshelf. The future of cosplaying for me right now is Star Trek. I've started a local group, the USS Growler, named after a museum exhibit here in New York City. And what it is it's a free-to-join Star Trek group. Costuming is not actually required, it's just a fun side effect of it. What it is a bunch of people who like getting together, like doing stuff, like raising money for charity. We'll do raffles at screenings or bar nights. We'll put together prop donations or gifts, whatever, and we'll collect money and raffles for it. A few members of the crew have connections to Broadway, so we've given away Broadway show tickets. And all that money goes to charities. The charities are usually related to celebrities of Star Trek and their charities. But we'll do it for any charity. We've raised money for hurricane relief, flood relief. It's giving back to the community. Now, for the future of cosplaying in general, I don't think it's going anywhere. It took a long time to get mainstream the way it is, and it may not be on TV the way it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, but conventions are not getting smaller. I've always considered myself a costumer, and that just might be the old man in me. When I started this, people who were considered cosplayers were 14, 13, 12-year-old kids running around conventions in anime costumes with big signs saying free hugs and everything else. I hate to say we took it a little bit more seriously, but maybe we didn't take the costume itself so seriously or the characters so seriously. We took what we were doing more seriously. And now, 15 years later, those 13-year-olds are 20-somethings, and they are the core of the cosplayer revolution that we're seeing now. And that's why the term has been adapted. It's just us old people and some new people I've met that just refuse to truly embrace the cosplay label.